Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls, and you're listening to Rainbow Country.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, a spotlight on Canadian independent trans recording artist Annaa Soleseis. Plus, my Big Brother Canada Season 11 coverage continues with the most recent Evicted Houseguest. That and more in episode 349, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hello, my name is Conchita.
And I'm Barbecue.
And my name is Hardcora. And we are the B Girls.
You're listening to
Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on Feedspot.com. So today, a spotlight on Canadian independent trans recording artist Annaa Soleseis, who joins me to talk about her current album, Rings of Saturn, her transition experience, and more. Plus, in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house, and on this episode I'm featuring some classic house, some queer Latin, and more. All that lies ahead as we start Journey 349 through Rainbow Country. But first up, I want to give a shout out to Peter B., who listens to Rainbow Country on CKCU-FM in Ottawa, Canada's capital. Peter B., I want to thank you for sharing your story about going to school with Carol Pope's younger brother. I believe his name was Nick Pope. And Carol Pope kicking ass while on stage back in the early days. Again, thanks for listening, Peter B. in Ottawa. And thank you for sharing your stories. Up next, my Big Brother Canada Season 11 coverage continues with the most recent Evicted Houseguest.
House guests, I have the results. By a vote of 4-3, Jonathan, you have been evicted from the Big Brother Canada Manor. Please get your things and say your goodbyes.
A proud Newfoundlander, Jonathan. Hi.
Hey, Mark, man, how's it going?
It's going well. That was quite an emotional goodbye.
Yes.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I mean, I feel great. I woke up, the sun shone. I got to sleep in a great bed. I mean, personally, I feel great. I mean, I didn't make it to number one, but I got to really build a good presence in the house. I feel like when I left, it touched everybody. It hurt everybody. So I can't ask for any more than that. That means that I've built some great relationships in the house. I mean, and it isn't goodbye. It's see you later. I get to see these people soon. I get to see some sooner than others, and I get to help with the finale. So I feel great, and I feel privileged to be part of this whole thing.
The vote, 4-3. Did that vote surprise you?
Not really. I mean, it was kind of 50-50. Me and Hope kind of went in with the mindset we didn't know which one of us were going home. So I was prepared for both. And I feel like either way I lost. I mean, if I stayed in the house, I get to see my best friend and ally leave, or I leave and my best friend and ally stays in the house, and he got to fight for us, right? So I'm not super surprised with it, but it is what it is. And I know everybody there was sad to see me go no matter what the vote. So I'm okay with it for sure.
So Jonathan, how would you describe your relationship with Ty?
My relationship with Ty. Okay, well, personally, I really respect the man. I think we're very similar in a lot of ways. We carry ourselves with a lot of the same things in life. I mean, I think outside of the house, we'll become great friends. But game-wise, I think early on, things got twisted up and we went in different directions and we never were able to meet a common ground. I feel like we both played two different games. But we had a mutual respect for each other, and we still do. I wish we could have worked together from the beginning to the end, because I feel like if we did, we would have done some major damage. But things happen, and they are what they are, and hey, I'm okay with it.
Were you surprised that Ty put you on the block?
Well, we had a conversation prior to the after POV ceremony. He told me respectfully I would have done the same for him, but that whole week surprised me. I mean, well, with Santina getting saved, and then him picking Shania for the POV. I mean, it was kind of a weird course of events, and Shania winning and then taking Renee off the block. And I kind of knew that he had. There was promises made with him and some people in my alliance that whoever was sitting next to Hope would go home. And like no one had any idea that would be me. So it was a little bit of an uphill battle, and it was an emotional battle. People had to go back and forth, but I was surprised, but not surprised at the same time, if that makes sense.
So Jonathan, where do you think things went wrong between yourself and Ty?
Between myself and Ty, I had to go back to early on when we had the all-guy alliance. I mean, it was something that I was a little uncomfortable with going in because we didn't know each other. We didn't know each other's games or who we were, but we did it. And I think there was, and me, Ty, and Rob actually had a little 3-guy alliance going on that we would go back to each other and report. But I think someone else noticed that and started getting into Ty's mind a little bit and trying to, veer him away from us, and Rob especially. And then I chose to just side with Rob. But I think things got mixed up in the beginning, and we never could fix them. So, and unfortunately, and I feel like the conversations I had with Ty prior to leaving, he kind of knew that, and he mentioned to me he kind of wished he had to stay true to those alliances, because I feel like we could have done great damage. I mean, we brought powerful different aspects to the game, and I'm sad it didn't work out that way, but it is what it is for sure.
So Jonathan, this week there were 2 members of the Crown Alliance on the block, Hope and yourself. Did you find it challenging campaigning against one of your fellow alliance member, that being Hope? Did you find that challenging?
Absolutely. It was very challenging, but at the same time, rewarding, because if I had to pick a way to exit without winning, it would be side by side with a brother of mine. When I did campaign, I didn't campaign against him. I just campaigned and let the people in the house know what I offer to them. And that's, a great number, loyalty, respectful game and open-mindedness. I'm never going to try to sway anyone's mind a certain way. I'm always open to conversation. I wanted to stress that to the other house guests. But also at the same time, I couldn't go against my guy Hope. When anyone asked, I told him how I felt about him, honestly, because I do feel like he's a great game player. I do feel like he has a lot more to offer than what he thinks and he believes. So I'm okay with how I campaigned. Maybe I should have campaigned a little bit different and I would have been in the inside. But it is what it is. And if I had to pick someone to go out next to, it was my guy Hope for sure.
Do you think your Crown Alliance members made the wrong decision evicting you?
That's a tough question. I don't think so. I mean, it might be naive of me to say that, but I think either way, they kept someone that is a great number for the Alliance. I mean, if they had to keep me, you know me, I'm going to go down fighting for what I believe in, and I believe in the Crown. But I feel like Hope is the same way. I feel like we both bring a lot to the table. So, and I do know that the Crown, it was not an easy decision. I mean, there was a lot of heartbreak. I mean, it was back and forth. I feel like there was people fighting for me, which I couldn't be more appreciative of. And so I do think that they battled with it for sure.
So you're off to the jury house.
Yes.
What kind of gameplay will you be looking for when you do get to cast a vote for the winner of Big Brother Canada Season 11? What kind of gameplay will you be looking for?
Strategical leadership, for sure. I mean, someone that strategized and someone that built a good group, stood for the group along the way, and made the hard decisions. I mean, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of the game, so tough decisions are going to have to be made. So, I mean, just great gameplay overall, and someone that is strategic in how they play it, but not to someone that led and didn't push people in the direction they felt was the way they wanted them to. Someone that led their alliance fairly. I mean, because like that game can get tricky. You want people to do something. They have their own mind. They don't want to do it. You can either try to force them to do it, or you can strategically move from it. And I'm going to cast my vote for someone that played the game, what I feel, the right way, and led, and then got to the end.
So, Jonathan, who do you think is playing the best game?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I got a couple people in mind. I mean, I might be a little biased because it's part of the Crown, but I strongly feel like Kuzi is playing a fantastic game. She's leading the charge. She's very strategic, and she has a target on her back, but not too big. And she has a great relationship with people. I mean, I admire her game for sure. And I'm very interested to see how she moves forward in this game. And I believe in her, and I would not be surprised if I see her in the final two and standing tall as number one.
So, Jonathan, my last question for you. Best part about being part of Big Brother Canada Season 11?
Oh, that's my favorite question. That's the one I love the answer. I mean, getting to know the house guests, getting to build relationships. I mean, the Crown is a strong example of that. That wasn't an alliance that was forced. It wasn't an early alliance. That was something that was formed over circumstance, and relationships were built, and we grew together. And before we all put that crown on our head, we got to know each other, and we knew what we brought to the table, and we knew we were behind each other. I mean, we all brought something to the group. We all brought strong leadership skills. Not one led over the other. We all led as a unit. And I got to know these people on a personal level. These are things that I will strongly hold close to my heart for the rest of my life, long after this game. So I'm so appreciative that Big Brother Canada gave me this opportunity, and I used it to the fullest. I mean, I gained, but I also enjoyed time with the people in there. And I'm going to look back at this whole experience as a positive, great thing. And so that's my favorite part of this whole experience.
Jonathan, well said, well done, well played. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for talking to me. I appreciate it, Mark.
Brother Canada airs on Global TV Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, and on Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. For all things Big Brother, check out their website, bigbrothercanada.ca.
Hi, this is Michael Anthony Alago, music executive, photographer, author, and you are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, a spotlight on Canadian independent trans recording artist Annaa Soleseis. Annaa Soleseis, hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
I have to say, thank you for being here, to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that. You are a musician, you are a producer, you are a singer, a multi-instrumentalist, a recording artist. Let's just jump right in and talk music. How would you describe the style, the genre of music that you do? Let's start there.
I play from the heart, so whatever comes from there is what I do. It's been called everything from ethereal pop to rock and roll, and even some electronica thrown in there. I think a couple dance songs are in the future as well, so we'll see.
Maybe a couple of dance remixes?
I kind of all do originals, but they just kind of started coming out, and I'm really excited about this new direction. I like to keep it fresh.
So in February 2023, you released Rings of Saturn. This is a 13-song album. Is this your debut album?
This is my third album. I released Event Horizon kind of as a test project in January of 2022. And then I had some ideas to do some electronica / overdub rock guitar. And as much as they were supposed to be ambient songs, they kind of turned into this more of electronica with a rock groove. And that came out in April of 2022.
So Rings of Saturn, did you record this during the pandemic?
Yes, Rings of Saturn has a great backstory to it. It started early in the pandemic when I had lost my job. I was early in my transition and I was really lost. And I missed playing with my musical friends, and I just started recording. I used what equipment I had with me at the time and just started laying down bass and drum tracks and adding guitar. And before I knew it, I had over 32 songs, and I'm starting to panic. It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all these? So I learned how to sing. I started taking singing lessons with this amazing group of people called Find Your Voice. I'm so grateful to have been connected with them. And they helped me learn how to use my voice properly for singing and for trans issues. And I kind of put Rings of Saturn on hold while I was learning my songs, learning how to sing, and writing new stuff that became Event Horizon. Then once I finished those projects, I then came back to Rings of Saturn, and that's what this one is.
So recording during a global pandemic, recording these songs by yourself, how was that process for you? Was that comfortable? Was it difficult? Was it
It was difficult. I mean, my transition was almost a worst case scenario. Everything was all lined up for this beautiful transition to who I truly am. I started taking my HRT. The next day, the pandemic dropped, and I lost my support network. I lost access to seeing my doctors in person. I lost so much that I had built up to help me get through what's difficult and in the best of times, but throw a global pandemic into that too, where you're now stuck in isolation. It was difficult too to learn how to do the recording from there. But working through all the issues, I really started discovering who I was. As much as I was able to write and connect with my internal feelings, there's nothing like having music to really give the nuance of your emotional whereabouts. And I used that so cathartically to help me get through a very difficult stage. And by the time I'm starting to get healthy and really starting to come around, I'm really starting to enjoy these songs, and they're really starting to mean a lot to me. So it just kind of kept snowballing. And I'm really grateful to have made it through that journey to get to this point.
I would think it would be challenging to be recording and writing and producing and all these elements that go into creating music while you're dealing with, health issues and mental health issues and your transition process. So that it's understandable having to put certain aspects on hold while you deal with you rather than creating music.
Yeah.
Like having you get right with you and your mental state and your health state and all these elements, get that in under control first, and then start, going back to the music and doing that while in lockdown.
That would have been ideal, right? But the reality is that music kind of was everything that I needed. I didn't have access to anymore.
Was it a saving grace?
Oh, absolutely, right? I mean, it gave me a constructive outlet so that I didn't have to worry about, the whole riots that were taking place in 2022 with June, and the threat of fascism, and all of these very dangerous ideologies that were starting to arise, and seeing how people were not treated well. I mean, that sucked me in, right? I got lost in that as I'm trying to do my transition, and music was this outlet for me where I could kind of escape the chaos that was going on everywhere and the difficult transition. And I could refine how I felt by recording it through my instrument. It was this beautiful transition where all of my thoughts were focused into short 4-minute, 5-minute songs that I really learned so much about myself through. It was all of these outlets that I had lost, reimagined in this musical landscape.
You wrote these songs, you produced these songs, you played all the instruments, you mixed the tracks. Why did you want to do all of these elements that go into creating music? Was this choice, or was this out of necessity, doing all these different elements, mixing, producing, arranging, all that sort of stuff?
It it was not planned. I mean, originally my music was just something for me to play against myself, right? To lay down a track of bass and just out of boredom, out of wanting to do something constructive, layer guitar on it. And so I started learning how to do the recording studio with that, and learning about volume levels and tonality, and how to get the best out of mic placements and that kind of stuff. And I never expected that I would ever have gotten to this point now where I have a third album out that I'm very proud of and I'm singing on. It was all of these little steps that I kept learning. I mean, I'm grateful for the online tutorials on YouTube, right? I mean, there's a plethora of information available at our fingertips, but none of this was planned. This was always just push myself a little further and a little further. And before you know it, I had a recorded song, and then I recorded a video for it. I was like, oh, this was good. I did this. And that level of confidence didn't just help me to continue with the music and finish Eventurize and then record the next two as well. It gave me the confidence to really start to shine as my own individual, as somebody who had something to give back and something to believe in my own personal journey.
You mentioned that this is your third album. Is this the album that you're most proud of?
It absolutely, it is, right? This was what I started recording. I can remember one of the very first songs that, and the very dark days, I started, even without a drum track, even without any other tracks, I just started playing guitar. So I'll just do a test. I'll do a test with my system, see how my volumes are. And I just kind of zoned out, and I started recording slow and again. And I played it back, and I had no idea where that came from. I used a line once that this was kind of like the automatic writing sessions that you used to see in movies where people go into these trances and just start scribbling. This was my music scribbling. This was me telling myself that there's something beautiful in me and something that I want to share. And it's not like everybody else. And it's not something that can be easily defined. Like even now, I don't know what genre of music is that song. I don't know. But these songs, they started showing me who I was. And I started showing myself who I was by evolving these songs even beyond. So this project, Rings of Saturn, which was paused and then continued and completed, to me has some very beautiful songs that not only am I proud of, but they help define a period of my life that I went through that maybe I wouldn't have without this.
So speaking of the songs, there's one track, Sun Sky. What's this track about?
Sun Sky. I had a lot of fun with that one. I got caught in doing some slow songs. I'm going to do something upbeat. So, you up the tempo. And Sun Sky, to me, was very much about that transition, right? It starts off kind of me talking about the bad patterns I got stuck into early in my life years ago. The substance abuse, the dishonesty, and I kind of transitioned that song with a guitar solo that kind of pre-shadows another song that comes up later on called Dreams Beneath, and maybe a tribute to one of my favorite musicians as well that passed on before that. Sun Sky became this kind of song I kept coming back to listen, and when I finally got the opportunity to put vocals and lyrics to it, I really liked the treatment of that, and it's a lot of fun to play, and I still really enjoy listening to it.
Another time to lie.
And on that note, we'll return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The 30th annual Hot Docs Film Festival runs in person in Toronto, April 27th to May 7th. And a curated selection of over 100 films will be available to stream nationwide from May 5th to May 9th. The 30th annual Hot Docs Film Festival showcases the best in Canadian and international documentaries, and this year's festival features 214 documentaries from 72 countries. There are a number of LGBT documentaries that are part of this year's festival, both in person and online. Some documentaries to look out for include a gay documentary called Much Ado About Dying, a trans documentary called Sketch, It's Only Life After All, a documentary about lesbian duo Indigo Girls, and one that I'm personally looking forward to, Love to Love You, Donna Summer. The Donna Summer documentary hits Hot Docs this year. Again, the 30th annual Hot Docs Film Festival runs in person in Toronto, April 27th to May 7th, and online May 5th to May 9th. For more information, simply visit hotdocs.ca.
Hi, I'm Paul Poirier, Canadian champion in ice dance and three-time Olympian, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara. So we talked about your music. Now let's talk about the person behind the music and getting a little bit more insight into Annaa Soleseis. You are transgender.
Yeah, I'll give you with the layer of understanding that I have now. I was born intersex, and I believe, as well as some very brilliant medical people that I know, that I was a chimera. I am a chimera, where I was a twin inside the uterus, and then we recombined into one person. If you asked me, it was a guy and a girl, and most of the guy's body and most of the girl's mind and heart kind of became me. I think that's really the easiest way to understand it. But having not known that as a kid, I always knew that there was a side of me that was very different, very beautiful, right? I mean, I can remember such great compliments, like, you're not like anybody I know, like, you're so unique, you're so special. And as a kid, I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to be able to not stand out, because there's so much pressure on kids. But I knew that who I was was different from a very young age, and it led to a lot of confusing and a lot of dark times, a lot of loneliness, and a lot of misunderstanding because there wasn't the support network. There wasn't the social understanding that being born different like this is a beautiful thing, right? We were shown time and again on so many social levels that being anything other than a cisgender heterosexual male was something to be targeted with bullies, with lies, with abuse. We see that now starting to come back again because that group of people are very threatened, it seems, by anything outside that gender norm. But the reality is, as so many psychologists, psychiatrists, the whole field is understanding how much of a spectrum all of our being is, right? So having grown up being in the wrong body, but I felt it led to a lot of times where I couldn't express my feelings without being called, feminine, being called something that was very difficult to deal with. So growing up, I remember getting very good at spending time alone. I had great Lego sets. I had universes created I especially love the space Lego, which I think, hey, now that I think of it, the whole Rings of Saturn, the Event Horizon black hole stuff may stem from all of that space exploration because I was stuck. I've been in a pandemic, I guess, for a couple of decades now with isolation, right? But having grown up, there were a lot of beautiful aspects too, right? I mean, when I was not being threatened with being judged or being bullied, I got to discover how much I loved being honest and forthright with people, how much I love nature. And I've always had a closeness to animals, to pets, to farms, zoos. Everything was such a beautiful learning experience. And while very private and lonely, it was very beautiful too. And then growing up in my teens, that's when things start to kind of go to, drugs and alcohol, goes to the rebellion in a lot of ways that, hey, if I can't be me, let's see who I can be. And everything was far away from who I was. And it was, I'll just say, I'm lucky to have made it this far. As I get older, I get better at hiding it. I can remember living out in Calgary once, and I remember going to Oaks Modeling and Talent Agency. I'm like, oh my God, I need a job in sales or something, right? That's where the money is. I got to do this. I got to step away a little from the electronics, being locked up in the back room. I want to live. I'm finally in a city out on my own. And I wanted to be a model. I wanted to be beautiful, right? And there's that little Annaa in me that always wanted to be this beautiful star in the night. But they're kind of like, yeah, you're not really a model type. Maybe acting's more your thing. Here, we'll move you over to the acting side of the class and being very passive. I'm like, okay, fine, thanks. But learning to act is all of a sudden, it's like, hey, yeah, you know what? The inside can kind of flourish. The outside becomes this very much somebody else. And that's kind of when I felt less struggle, because my outside just became this more masculine, more cool, more, who was I? Like I was any typical Hollywood cool cis hetero male. That was my image. James Dean, let's go with that, right? But it also meant that the inside not getting the attention, the real me was withering a little. And looking back, that was a sad time because I destroyed so many beautiful relationships with girlfriends, with friends, because as they would start to get to know the real me behind the mask, I would have to push them away because I was so threatened by having to tell the world, tell my family that I was trans, that it was easier just to push them away, appear to become the not so nice person, and just deal with moving on. But it was a cold winter in PEI about almost 5 years ago, where it just clicked. Like, you're trans. It just clicked. It just, like, my egg, as they say, cracked into a million pieces. And I still have a picture of those early days where I finally got to dress up and be me. And the look in my eyes, seeing myself as like a kid who hadn't seen themselves in 40 years. And it was so beautiful. And it really led me to have the courage and the conviction. And I can remember a conversation I had with myself driving back from PEI after another failed relationship. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to start my life back again in another province. I remember having the conversations with, like, hey, you know what? Give yourself 2 or 3 years with this, right? I almost had the conversation with myself, the male side and the female side. And I was like, hey, yeah, you know what? We tried this. We always knew this wasn't the path. Now that we analyze it, let's give our full heart to being who we really are, who I really am. And that decision led to a very difficult journey of dozens of counselors and psychiatrists and psychologists. And the process is so long to get through to proper gender support clinics. It takes so much jumping through hoops, right? I mean, you see people like, oh yeah, there's like people are like being a cult. It's like, if this is a cult, it's one of the hardest ones to get into. And the reality is that every person I talked to along the way became a fan, became an ally, became a friend, became someone who got behind me 100%. And a lot of times I wasn't so much needing their help as I was sometimes helping them understand what it meant to be trans. And I talked to so many amazing people and finally got to the point where I could start taking HRT, and finally got to the point where I was accepted for gender reassignment surgery to complete the task. And all of these steps, like, I look back and say, well, if this had changed then, so many things would have disappeared along the way. So as difficult as it was to come through such a long journey, I'm very grateful for every step of the way. And I'm so pleased to finally be at this point where I get to just be me all the time.
Okay, so I think you're the perfect person to speak on this, because there, at least in 2023, there's a lot of talk about children, young children, trans young children, and being given medication to begin transitioning if they feel they are transgender. How do you land on that for someone who is young and having emotions, and you lived it? And you mentioned earlier that you didn't have the choice to transition earlier in your life, and I'm sure if you had that opportunity, maybe you would have. So I'd love to get your opinion, your professional opinion, because you've lived it. How do you see this? What we're living through right now in 2023, and this really hot button topic of young people, of children, and being transgender. And speak on this for me, please.
Yeah, I will. And again, this is all my opinion. And I will offer the best of my insight on this. First of all, oh yes, I would have loved to have been able to go back and say, hey there, young me, you're right. Those feelings you have are real. Those that desire to be the best version of yourself with the help of medical professionals who study this, who have great backgrounds, who understand the biological aspects of it. I mean, the reality is that me having taken HRT in my 40s, it's changed everything about me in such beautiful ways. My biology has changed so much. I've blossomed into who I am now. Looking back then, if I could have gone to a doctor and had a doctor say, hey, if you can go through therapy and you can discover that, hey, you got the dysphoria, you have the real need to follow this path that will change you for the rest of your future, but you can always back out of it too at some level. I would have taken it, absolutely. I would love to have had a less deep voice. I would love to have had not lost all of those years trying to not discover who I was, right? I feel that I would have, like when I look at the time that I have since the beginning of my transition, the last 2 years have been absolutely phenomenal. I've hit my stride, if you will, right? To be able to focus on who I am and my tasks and what I love and who I am and where I want to go, and to be the best version of me at work and with my family and with my friends and with myself and with my music. I am able to accomplish so much more because I don't have to put everything through a filter. I don't have to be upset at a society that doesn't accept me. I mean, I'm not saying all society does accept me, but I have rebuilt my family relationships. I have become this great employee who my work bosses are always singing my praises because I go in there and I give my all, right? This is what I love doing. This is who I love being. This is everything about me. To wave back to my little self, I could see issues along the way, not for me, but for how other people would have seen me, or they feel their need to intervene as a distraction from having to fix things in their own life. So today, my concern with kids transitioning is, are they getting the right medical help? I think at a biological and psychological, even a sociological and a spiritual level, all of these things need to be talked about and discovered. And there are risks and there are real rewards as well. If a hypothetical situation, if I had my own kid and they came to me and they say, Mommy, I want to be who I really am, I'd talk with them and say, hey, what makes you feel like this? What is it that's driving you to this path? And I would take them at their word, because I know at a young age, I knew. Like the same way a kid says, no, I don't like that type of music. I don't have the ability to see or hear properly, right? People know their bodies. People have agency over their own actions and their own perceived self-identity, right? I mean, from a very young age, we know what we like and what we don't like. We know where we want to go, what we want to do. We want to be the astronaut. We want to be the doctor. The difficulty right now isn't what the kid is going to make a mistake or not. I mean, the reality is, my understanding is that if, say, a 13-year-old me wanted to transition and go on puberty blockers, me as somebody that wasn't born who I am now, would have a harder time than, say, someone who was born a girl and started developing early and wants to go on puberty blockers so that they're not growing breasts at a very young age, right? That's been very much accepted, that you want to delay your puberty, then that's fine. That same ability, that same process should be there for gender nonconforming kids as well. The surgeries, I know I had to have jaw surgery for a TMJ issue. And they knew about it when I was 15, when I was 14. They say it's going to get worse. It's going to get to a point where you could have damage to your teeth. You could have damage to your digestive system. We're going to have to do surgery on you. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. I'm off this summer. It's like, no, but we're going to have to wait for you to stop growing first. You're going to have to wait till you're 17 or maybe even 18. We'll monitor you, but we can't do surgery until you're done growing. So I very much suspect that this process is the same. There's not major surgeries for these gender nonconforming kids wanting to pursue their authentic selves. A lot of what we hear is fear and misinformation. I don't know why they're offering so much fear and misinformation. I suspect it's to deflect and detract from their own doings and make a real bad person out of nothing in order to take the attention away from whatever thing is not so honest. You know, it's a very disingenuous process to attack trans people right now. So yeah, I would support my kid going through this transition. I would put them on puberty blockers and allow them to get to a point where, hey, you know what? We are now at 17 years old, kid. You're going to stop. You're growing soon. Are you sure? Let's go and talk with the support networks that we have in place. That's verified that you know all of the risks and the rewards coming through this. And if you still want to make that right decision to follow your authentic life, and you know, I'm very much proof that following your authentic life has rewards well beyond. I mean, if I lose 10 years off my life, but I get to live the next 20 with absolute joy that I'm living now, I'd sign me up. I'm on there. This is me. Yes, absolutely. I can't think of a better life to live. I would support my kid doing the same thing too, because they deserve to find the joy and the happiness in their life, just being their authentic self. Once they had finished growing and once they've gone through the whole process, if they want to have a gender affirming surgery or whatever it is, I would support that too. You know, I'm very accepting of people knowing their bodies the best. I'm very understanding of the difficult process of having to go through this. And I have the compassion and the understanding to know that we have wonderful medical knowledge. We have wonderful psychological help, and that it's okay to be different. So I would be on board with my child going through and becoming the best version of who they are. I would support that 100%.
Well said, well said. Before I let you go, Annaa Soleseis, on your record Rings of Saturn, there's a track called What's Left of Me. What's this track about?
I remember early in the days, I was just starting to get my music going on, and I was just playing bass. I was in a trans chat with some friends, and this bass line came to me. And it was kind of like one of these inspirations out of the blue. And I just laid down that track, and then I laid the other guitar. It's like, there's something special about this. The song really means something deep. And when I started to write the lyrics to it and started to sing it back in December, you know, once I wrote with the lyrics, you know, Will I Break Away? It was remembering those early days of my transition when so many people were against me trying to find the best version, my authentic version, that I felt so conflicted. I felt like this will be a very difficult journey. And what if I don't have the strength to do this? What if I can't? And when I get through it to the other side, what will be left of me, right? A very spiritual question of, when I remove everything that I'm not, what's left? And I'm happy to say there's a lot. There's more than I ever dreamed possible.
Well said, Annaa Soleseis. Well said, well done, well recorded, well made. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for this, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
You can play even more Annaa Soleseis on your favorite streaming service. And for even more on this artist, check out the website, AnnaaSoleseis.com. And I'll spell that for you. Annaa, A-N-N-A-A. Soleseis, S-O-L-E-S-E-I-S. AnnaaSoleseis.com.
Nothing's left to say, words will not convey who I am and where I've been. Nothing's left to do, nothing's left to prove till I come through.
Phone rings. I got a message from the mayor. He's going to call me back the next day. I get the call, and he said, if you'd accept, we'd like to honor you with the key to the city. There was an event later that year in May. Just a key, right? Like, key to what? A decent job, a good singing career. It's really a metaphor, but it's history. So a reporter wants to talk to me and says, so it's a key, right? Like, what's the big deal? I said, well, not everybody gets the key. So I looked it up, and I guess it is kind of a big deal.
The date, May 17th, 2018, when trans activist Susan Gapka made history by becoming the first trans woman to be presented with the key to the city of Toronto. By the way, past recipients include Rush and the Raptors. And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, simply head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, check out my socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. Finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.